Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing the GeForce RTX 5080, and yes, this Founders Edition cooler is actually the same as the 5090 with the dual flow-through design, very nice. However, they are vastly different GPUs. The 5080 over here is based on the Blackwell architecture, and it has 10,752 CUDA cores, 16GB of GDDR7 VRAM running on a 256-bit memory bus, a bandwidth of 960 gigabytes per second, PCI Express 5.0, 360 watts TDP, and a price tag of $1,000. Half of what the 5090 costs, but I guess you're also getting half of the GPU. Yes, guys, we're looking at big reductions in specs compared to that 5090 flagship. In some ways, it's actually a 50% reduction, which is pretty insane. And I think this is the biggest cut down from highest-end GPU to the second highest-end GPU in a lineup ever. And in terms of performance, that means that the 5090 is a massive 40 to 50% faster than the 5080. The 4090 continues to be the second fastest GPU by quite a decent margin. It's 20% faster still than this. And compared to the RTX 4080 Super, the 5080 is around 8 to 15% faster. Oh boy. This is a very small jump in performance gen on gen, and honestly, I was expecting better. I was thinking this would get much closer to the RTX 4090 than the 4080 Super, yet it's closer to the 4080 Super. There's still quite the gap there, you know? At the very least, it provides better value than all of the GPUs that I mentioned, but not too much more over, say, a 4080 Super. Again, it's a small improvement in performance, same price, AI features, which are nice. I really liked testing DLSS 4 in the multi-frame generation, you know, but still, I think it should have been much closer to the 4090 in performance. But that's enough intro, let's play some games now at 4K resolution, with DLSS in some of them, shall we? And well, let's start with Cyberpunk 2077. We're playing this one at 4K resolution, utilizing the Ultra Settings preset, but I disabled resolution scaling, which comes on by default, as well as these options right here. So this is native 4K resolution, rasterization as well, not utilizing ray tracing just yet. Of course, I'm gonna try that out in just a little bit. Why don't you use your blinkers, you bastard? Anyways, let's keep on going here. So it actually drops from 60 FPS and by quite a fair bit, actually. Whoa, okay. So low 50s while driving really fast here in this road. This is really intensive, by the way. If you're walking around instead of driving around, it's not going to drop that far. It's actually going to stay above 60 FPS all of the time. But driving around is extremely intensive, and it's all Bob's fault, of course. So goodbye, Bob. There we go. I will... What? You will what, Bob? I want to hear that again, please. I did not understand what you said. Also, it's Cyberbug again, or Cyberbob, should we say. That's a very big right arm, Bob. What the hell have you been doing? But yeah, guys, this is a big decrease in performance compared to the RTX 5090. That one never dropped from 60 FPS, of course. It was getting around 90 to 100 on average most of the time, and it dropped to what, the 80s, I think, minimums, maybe 70s. So way different of an experience compared to that GPU. And it's actually a bit slower at the same time than the RTX 4090 was in this particular test. So, ouch. I think a lot of people were expecting it to be closer to the 4090 than it actually is, unfortunately. Let's do ray tracing ultra settings here now, using DLSS super resolution with the transformer model, which looks really good. I'm actually going to set this to performance here, and ray reconstruction as well. Not using frame generation just yet, and let me just disable these things over here. Okay, this is it. I'm going to restart the game to fully apply the settings, and here we have it, guys. Starting at 90 FPS, I'm going to start counting our frames, of course, and hopefully this time around it won't drop into the 50s, okay, but we also started with around these FPS previously. Yeah, it seems like with DLSS performance here and the ray tracing Ultra preset, it's not dropping as far as it did on Ultra. Now, this is not utilizing the frame generation, obviously, so these are all real FPS, and the input lag that comes with it is also very fast, of course. You can't really notice it too much. Goodbye, Bob! So So it feels really nice and smooth. It never drops from like, what, 70 frames per second. Even though the 1% lows are at 56, it never dropped that far. This is probably how I'd end up playing this game with the 5080 here if there wasn't frame generation, because the MFG in this game is extremely impressive, as I showed in the dedicated Cyberpunk video, and that's what I'm gonna try next, of course. And here we have it, guys. This is it. 4K DLSS performance, transformer model, ray reconstruction, frame generation 4 times. That's the magic of the 50 series, by the way. The other improvements from DLSS 4 will also come to the 40 series, like the transformer model, which looks really, really good. This changes DLSS basically and makes the performance DLSS be very, very useful and look really, really good. Maybe even better than like balanced DLSS using the CNN version, the older version. And here we're getting 200 plus FPS, so you can take advantage of a 4K high refresh rate monitor with AI generated frames, of course, or the fake frames you could say. But in terms of latency and stuff like that, as I showed in my RTX 5090 Cyberpunk video, which has 50 minutes with a deep dive in latency and stuff like that. Goodbye, Bob! This still feels really, really good when it comes to response time, since the base FPS before we enabled frame generation were at around like 80 frames per second. So this is an absolutely amazing experience when it comes to input lag. It looks really, really good. In terms of the fake frames, I can't really spot much in terms of artifacting and stuff, although the performance improvements of the RTX 5080 over like the 4080 or 4080 Super, which are very similar GPUs, yeah, it's not huge whatsoever, and that's very disappointing in my opinion, because I was expecting it to be closer to the 4090 once again. But hey, at least we have these new technologies and they work great. And now let's play with Ray Tracing Overdrive. I'll keep DLSS set to performance there, 4 times frame generation, and I'll disable these options once again. I'm not sure how well it's going to work here. I'm scared. Ooh, okay. So in terms of FPS, it's not hitting 200 frames, unfortunately. So that means that input lag is definitely a bit more noticeable than it was before, all right? But it still doesn't feel bad by any means. And it's pretty impressive that we can have, goodbye, Bob, this experience with path tracing enabled and with these graphics. Although I feel like the improvement in graphics is not really worth it over Ray Tracing Ultra, and I would keep utilizing Ray Tracing Ultra with those 240 FPS with MFG. But what about path tracing with like DLAA, for example, and no frame generation? Oh, okay, yep, so this is it, guys. So here, the RTX 5090 was getting 30 to 35 frames per second with a dip here and there into the high 20s, and this one is doing 19, 18 frames, getting 20 sometimes. It's just absolutely ridiculous how intensive path tracing really is, and if you want to run it at native resolution, this is the result. It's not gonna happen, okay? We're quite a few years away of playing with path tracing at native 4K resolution. You really need those DLSS technologies to make it playable, and it's interesting that we're seeing a lot of artifacting around the car, even though we're not utilizing frame generation. Like, look at this. On the back of the car especially, I see a lot of duplicated license plates there. Pretty weird, right? But yeah, this is the result. Let's compare it a little bit in the graphs with the 4080 Super, and I'll be back testing another game in a few seconds. Next is the good old Red Dead Redemption 2 at 4K resolution, utilizing maximum settings aside from MSAA, which is turned off. And I got good news and bad news. The good news is we're getting 69 FPS, and that's very nice. The bad news is this is only about 8% faster in this game than the 4080 Super, so that means it's a lot slower than the 4090 and the 5090, of course. Still, if you're looking for that 4K ultra settings experience in Red Dead Redemption 2, and all you need is 60 FPS, you can definitely max this game out and have a gorgeous and pretty amazing and smooth experience here with the 5080. And the power usage is actually quite low in this particular title as well. As you can see, 270-ish watts of power being utilized. And Jack is not here today. This is a big shame, my friends. Maybe we need to test GTA 5 in this video, since we didn't see Jack in Red Dead. And Bob is here, at least. Sing for us, Bob, sing! Go ahead. I love the ragdolls in this game, especially the Bob rolling around ragdolls. There we go. Beautiful song, Bob. Very nice. I'll release him because of that. This strawberry, it's very intensive of an area to test here in Red Dead Redemption 2, and we should be seeing a few FPS drops, basically because this has a river coming through an entire town. Okay, and again, water physics are super demanding. So here we're getting 60 to 70 most of the time. Actually, it's not even dropping into like the mid 60s, so that's fine. It's going to stay above 60 FPS all of the time. Now it's a competitive one, Counter-Strike 2 at 4K using very high settings with 4 times MSAA to max out that GPU usage. Alright guys, here we go. Just started counting the frames and let's try to hit those flick shots. There we go. Wait a second. Can we do this? Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Oh, no. Well, at least we got a knife kill right away. Great start. Let's do this, guys. I want to see some flick shots. Although I never know if I'm actually going to be able to hit those, but yeah, I don't train a lot of Counter-Strike, you know? Like, come on, no, wait, can I hit the shot? Yeah, there we go, good stuff. Even with the deagle, we got this, guys. No, I missed, there we go. But yeah, guys, I don't play this that often, you know, like... Okay, there we go. Wait a second. No, let's not cheat and kill him with a knife to gain more points, okay? Yeah, we're not like that. We're not like that. Another one. Oh, no, you stole my kill, you bastard. There we go. There we go. No, there's another one. Whoa. No. No. There we go. So maybe today I should stick with the deagle. I don't know, guys. I want to get more kills, and I don't see anyone. Oh, there's one there spawning. There we go. Okay, that works. Please. Oh my gosh, these spawn protections, man. Well, guys, I'm not feeling the AWP today, unfortunately. This is very bad. 1 minute to go. Actually, 39 seconds now. Trying the AK over here, but yeah, it's a buttery smooth experience to be expected in a Counter-Strike. Obviously, the 5080 won't have a problem whatsoever playing these competitive shooters, even on very high settings, and obviously if you want a super duper high refresh rate experience all of the time, low settings is probably the way to go, right? Let's go! I still got that one there. Alright, yeah, I should have switched to the AK a long time ago today, my friends. Alright, good stuff. There we go. Recoil control. I'm feeling that today, actually. Not bad. Alright, there we go. And for the first UE5 title of the day, we got Stutter 2 Lag of Chernobyl. And we're playing this one at the 4K resolution, native high settings with DLEA here. No frame generation at the moment, and it's hovering around 60 to 70 FPS right here. Not too bad. Sometimes it drops, look at that, into the 50s, unfortunately. But it is a playable experience, definitely. Although this is pretty terribly optimized, as you guys know already. Let's start counting our FPS, though. This is not even maximum settings, and it's already dropping. Come on, like... Anyways, let's see Bob over here. Goodbye, Bob! But yeah, this is an alright experience. It's still 4K native, of course, so we got some things that we can try to make it run better, like DLSS quality over here. If you enable that, instead of getting those 60s, we're now getting up into the 90s. Feels way smoother on a high refresh rate panel, that's for sure. Now, this is probably how I'd play this game with the 9800X 3D, but if you have something slower than the best CPU for gaming available at the moment, you will likely become CPU bound, especially in those settlement areas, because it's just broken, okay? This is super demanding on the CPU as well, and for that, you're better off enabling the frame generation. I'm gonna enable that over quality DLSS, because otherwise the input lag lag will be a little bit higher on the LAA, for example. And here with the baseline of 90 FPS, which is what we were getting previously before FG was enabled, we are seeing 100 in teens, basically below 120 frames per second, and it looks very, very smooth, of course, on a high refresh rate panel, guys. So overall, a very playable and enjoyable experience here in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, even with all of the technical difficulties that this game has in terms of performance and stuff. It's still very, very nice on the 5080, as it should be. It's a very expensive GPU after all. Okay, enough stuttering for now, guys. This is Forza Horizon 5, one of the smoothest titles at 4K resolution using TAA and the extreme, actually the maximum settings, not even the extreme preset. Let's start counting our FPS. We're getting 120s, 130s at times. It's a high refresh rate experience throughout the entire game, basically. It looks amazing at the same time. The TAA here is like magic, actually, because it usually sucks in a lot of titles, but in this one, it looks really, really good. And as I'm sure a lot of you guys know already, this is an absolutely amazing game in terms of optimization. So 130s right here while flying. We still got our license plate right there, GT710 for the win. Nice. It's actually kind of unbelievable, guys. We lost our spoiler in the GT710 plate. No, this is awful. Anyway, I was gonna say it's actually unbelievable how S.T.A.L.K.E.R, for example, and other UE5 titles stutter so much, and this game manages such a smooth frame time graph while driving really fast as well through the world, open world, you know. Kind of crazy, right? We're finally here in the city area. Use your blinkers. Do you have a BMW or something? Like, I do, so I don't use any blinkers, but yes, anyway, moving on. 120s in the middle of the city. It's really, really nice and smooth, of course. If you need more FPS, there's always frame generation in this title, but I don't feel the need to utilize it. It looks super nice like this, and it still plays absolutely amazingly as well. Getting out of the tunnel drops us down to 100 frames per second. Yeah, this is a game that you should definitely play at 4K max out settings on a GPU like this. Oh boy, oh boy, oh, okay, so this is Battlefield 2042, guys. We are in a bit of a situation. I'll show you the settings in just a little bit, okay? Come on, we can do this. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Multi-kill, damn. Anyway, let's go over the settings here, yes? A nice start. 4K resolution using ultra settings preset without the LSS or ray tracing, and yeah, what more? Are you serious? Are you kidding? No, that's exploded. Okay, it's bugging out. That's why it was moving there. I'm gonna start counting the frames now, and let's reload. So the 5090 actually was getting around 200 frames per second in this game. It's over. This is getting around like 60 less frames, not in the same map, but it's definitely a lot slower, although it can still provide an amazing experience at 4K, of course. Okay, different map now. This one is way more intensive, as you can see, 110s, lower 190s, 90s with the smoke effects. Damn, okay, let's start cutting the frames. Still a very smooth experience, obviously. So I really wouldn't have a problem playing like this, although if you want to max out a 120Hz monitor even, or 144Hz monitor, you would need to lower it down to like high settings. It still looks the same on high settings, by the way, so you're not really losing much if you do so, but yeah, you need to sacrifice something. Huh? Hello. Goodbye. There's another one there. Yeah. Okay. Should have went for the other kill there. He's right there. He's right there. Come on, boy. Let's go. Push the bastard. Come on. Goodbye. Good stuff. All right, should I move on here? Yes. Goodbye, sir. Very nice. They weren't expecting me for sure. Wait. Okay, let's reload the RPG. Come on. Where is it? Oh, there he is. There he is. Come on. Oh, yes. Another big kill. And a little stutter there as well while we were doing so. But yeah, very nice, right, guys? Ultra settings, buttery smooth. Nice. Let's go. Oh, I'm having fun here, guys. This is really nice, actually. Back to UE5 and optimization. Let's go, guys. This is Black Myth Wukong at 4K, utilizing DLSS 100%, so it's DLAA, and high settings, not max settings, okay? And this way, we can actually get 60 to 70 frames per second on average. It will likely drop from 60 FPS, since it's already dropping to like the mid-60s sometimes over here. And let's keep on going in this direction. Fight this over here. Yes, let's go. Let's go. Maybe we can do something. Oh, yeah, it's been a while, guys, since I fought something here in Black Myth Wukong. Still not dropping too much. There we go. Yeah, it's definitely playable. It's nice that it can play this at native 4K resolution with high settings, but high settings still look really good. Now let's try enabling some DLSS. This is quality DLSS on 67%, and it's not DLSS 4 yet, but we can see the FPS here. Doesn't look too bad either. You can definitely tell a bit more pixelation around the character as well as the vegetation and stuff. Things that are moving basically are going to be a little bit more pixelated. And with 100 FPS now on average, it's going to be a heck of an experience in Black Myth Wukong, guys, while looking pretty great at the same time. Now, if you want to play with path tracing or full ray tracing, which is available in this game, yeah, that's where things are going to start being pretty terrible, basically. So let's enable that full ray tracing on very high, and I will restart the game to apply it. Okay, now we're at 4K with the 100% resolution scale, no frame gen, full ray tracing on very high and high settings. So still not maxed out, we just got full ray tracing. Oh my. Okay. I thought something was very wrong for a second. And it still is, of course. The frame rate is absolutely terrible. But if you are looking for a cinematic experience, I guess, it's going to get that 24 FPS. Great stuff, right? Definitely not. Don't do this. So we definitely need to utilize some DLSS here. I'm gonna do 50% resolution scale, which is performance DLSS. Still looks decent, as you can see, and now we're back to around the same values that we were seeing with DLSS 100%, so DLAA and high settings at native, without ray tracing, of course. So it's going to be a okay experience, right? It's going to drop here and there from 60 FPS, but not very often. Averages are going to be in the 60s. But what this gives us is a good baseline FPS to enable frame generation. So let's do that and see, much smoother of an experience, although a little bit blurrier one or softer. You know what? Let me just switch to this guy over here. There we go. A couple of stutters there because it's the first time that I'm doing that with the ray tracing enabled. But yeah, not too bad in terms of the visuals. Looks good. 90 FPS feels decent. The frame generation at these frame rates does introduce some noticeable input lag, but it's not all that terrible, actually. I could deal with it for sure. Although, again, there are quite a bit more imperfections to the graphics, unfortunately. So I'd likely just disable ray tracing altogether in this one. But either way, it's going to be playable. Now it's God of War Ragnarok at 4K using DLAA and the Ultra settings, and it's getting 90-ish frames per second. I'm going to start counting the frames here. This is quite a big reduction compared to the 5090, my friends. That GPU is getting 150 here. This is like 50% slower, basically. Water always looks really, really good in this title, although with DLAA, it's a little bit shimmery, or more shimmery than I'd like, and FSR native actually looks a little bit better in this one. I wonder when DLSS comes to this game, or when we can actually override the DLSS version with the Nvidia app, if it will be fixed and will look even more incredible. But we shall find out later, of course, when that happens. Right now, it still looks amazing, of course. Like, overall, the presentation of this game is really nice. It has a lot of detail. The textures look amazing as well. It runs very smoothly at the same time, and there's no need to utilize DLSS quality, for example, or any kind of upscaling, frame gens, and so on, because it's just going to work absolutely fantastic at native 4K. And speaking of DLSS override, Marvel Rivals, which is compiling shaders in the background right now, does support it. All you need to do is go to the Nvidia app, go to graphics, search for Marvel Rivals, which is right here, scroll down to the driver settings and enable DLSS override right here. I am using the latest frame generation version as well as the latest super resolution and DLSS override frame gen set to 4 times. But let's start at 4K resolution without any upscaling or frame generation, ultra settings with Lumen, which is software ray tracing. Alright, here we are guys, getting 60-ish frames per second. It's dropping now, it's already dropping into the 50s. Oh no, that's pretty bad. Okay, that's all because this game is terribly optimized basically. For how it looks, it's way too intensive, right? So yeah, it's a little bit slower than like the RTX 4090, which did get around 60 FPS, but it never dropped from it in my testing at least. So I'm gonna enable DLSS on quality next and no frame generation just yet, and now we're getting 90 frames per second, so we went from 60 to 80s and 90s. This should make it a lot smoother. Here we go. Yeah, this feels a lot better than at 4K native resolution, guys. It also looks slightly better, might I say. You know, because now we have anti-aliasing going on from DLSS and we don't have jagged edges anywhere, and previously at native without AA it was a little bit jaggy, not gonna lie. And now let's try it with frame generation. This is again 4 times FG because of the override that we did, and instead of seeing 90 FPS or 80s, we're up into the 200s. Not gonna start counting the FPS because the 1% lows are always terrible because of how the frame pacing works in this generation. A little bit differently, and MSI Afterburner unfortunately can't read it right. But yeah, you can see here it's really nice of an experience, very smooth for a high refresh rate panel, although the input latency is just a little bit worse than what it was at native resolution with 90 frames per second. It's not very noticeable, the difference. It's about like 5 milliseconds, so it doesn't really matter too much. But it's there. It's a difference that is there, and it's worse for a competitive title. That's why I would never utilize frame generation in a competitive shooter game. So what I would do instead, and I think what anyone who's serious about their competitive play is going to do, is play at 4K with lowest settings here. I restarted to fully apply it, and let's try it. Alright, so we're getting just below 200 FPS. Actually dropping into the 150s now, so it's a lot below 200 FPS. I thought it was going to be better, again, because the game just doesn't look good enough to justify this kind of performance. It's a 5080, okay? Still, guys, it is a smooth and very playable experience, obviously. Not saying it isn't, I'm just saying it's a bit underwhelming, and it should definitely be better optimized, this game, you know? But yeah, if you want to play competitively at 4K native, you can. It's still going to provide a high refresh rate experience, even without any of those upscalers and frame generators and stuff. And maybe if you are very, very serious about your FPS here at 4K, maybe utilize the DLSS performance without frame generation, so you don't have any input lag, you know? And now, Again, I was expecting a lot more FPS with performance DLSS. This is rendering the game at 1080p and upscaling to 4K. It looks really close to 4K resolution, by the way. It's also DLSS 4, but it's only giving us slightly higher FPS, maybe like 50 more FPS or something. Actually, not slightly, it's quite a bit more, but it's still very underwhelming. I'm not saying this is a bad game, I'm just saying it's badly optimized. You know what? Now I'm curious to see the frame generation as well, 4 times being utilized over DLSS performance. We're getting 400 FPS. With the 5090 we got like 600 FPS, I believe, with these settings. Not sure if it was with DLSS performance, I think it was. So yeah, good 200 FPS lower with the multi-frame gen compared to the 5090, if you were wondering. But again, the input latency is a little bit lower than what we got at native 200 FPS. But it's completely negligible, I cannot feel the difference. But maybe in a very extreme competitive scenario, it will matter. It could matter. Now it's Horizon Forbidden West at 4K resolution using the LAA and the highest settings, aside from motion blurs and stuff. And we're getting around 69 FPS. Very nice, right? It's actually above 69 FPS pretty much at all times. This is nice. Of course, down there, it's going to get a little bit more intensive. This is also the Burning Shores DLC, which is much more demanding than the base game, basically. So in the base game, you can expect like 10, 15 higher FPS than what we see here. And yeah, it's always above 60 FPS, apparently. Pretty smooth stuff as well. But well, let's try out DLSS quality here quickly and start counting our FPS. Yeah, close to 90 to 100 most of the time. These are all real FPS, you know, no frame generation being utilized. So the input latency is native here with 80 FPS. Feels nice and responsive. Everything is great. I mean, I think this is it, guys. For Horizon Forbidden West, this is the best experience that you can have, in my opinion, with the 5080s. Close to high refresh rate as well. Maybe enabling frame generation would do even better, because then it's a true high refresh rate experience. Okay, the LSS frame gen is enabled now, and we're getting a small improvement of like 20 to 30 frames per second. You know what? I would stick with DLSS quality in this one. Input lag, it's still good, but you can definitely feel the difference. Well, the game looks maybe slightly softer once again. It's really hard to tell the difference, though. And it goes up to 150 FPS, if you're wondering. Look at this over here. Yeah, crazy high. So for that high refresh rate experience, I could see this being a very viable option indeed. Okay, next up is Call of Duty Black Ops 6, guys. We're playing this one at 4K native resolution using NIS native just to sharpen it up, because the game is quite soft if you don't use it. Depth of field is turned off and we're using extreme settings. Well, hello there. And I'm gonna start counting our FPS. It's just below 100 frames, actually dropping into the 80s at times. Did not expect to see that. Maybe I should have expected it, since this game is quite intensive, and it also was quite intensive on the 5090. So obviously this is very smooth still, but I thought it was going to be a little bit better. The game doesn't really look all that impressive to justify its performance here, unfortunately, guys. And that's a big issue with many of today's games, really. Even though in this particular one you could decrease some settings. Ooh, look at that, dropping into the 60s. You gotta be kidding me. You could lower some settings, make it look pretty similar to what we're seeing here, and achieve way higher FPS. Even utilize some upscaling, but I think the upscaling in this game is a little bit broken, so maybe I wouldn't really do that. Oh, the other camper, the sniper is still there. Maybe we can get him from behind. Is this you? I think so. All right, let's go. Keep on going here inside of the house. Nuketown is such a great map, actually. I like it, guys. In Call of Duty, lots of explosion in his benchmark. That's nice as well. Let's go, boy. Oh, boy. Okay, got him. Got him, got him, got him. Keep on going here. Saw that one. Okay, got him. Ooh, some tags. Some tags. I want tags. Yes. All right, there we go. Got the sniper guy again. All right. And if you remember, guys, just remember or push the video back a little bit to the Battlefield 2042 part, and we saw an entire huge map with 64 players running around, more detailed than this, in my opinion. And it was getting better performance than this. It's kind of crazy. It's the crazy thing about Call of Duty. It's not terribly optimized, but it kind of is, putting things into perspective, comparing it with Battlefield. This is 6v6. Now it's Indiana Jones in the Great Circle at 4K using the supreme settings here. Pretty much everything maxed out, full RT on, and DLSS performance. And just real quick here, it's getting below 60 FPS. It's not very good, really. And I would probably not utilize path tracing in this title with anything below like a 4090, I guess. And this is, of course, slower than the 4090. But I need to show this to you guys. It's getting 50 to 60, right? VRAM allocation, look at that. It's at 16 gigabytes, and this is with performance DLSS, all right? If I go here and try it with DLSS set to quality, for example, which is still not the full native resolution, of course, look at the FPS. And that's because it swapped some things that should have been on VRAM into the RAM already. Basically, it ran out of VRAM. We can actually run out of VRAM in a 16GB GPU. That's a little bit underwhelming, of course, but you do need to utilize path tracing and supreme textures in the latest games, of course, for that to happen. And it's only in this one, actually, so there's that. So what you can do to make it better is lowering the texture pool size to high. This will help it a lot. You need to restart, though. And here we have it. It is working now, obviously with 40-ish frames per second, which isn't ideal, but hey, at least it's working. All you need to do is drop down that texture pool size to high, and the textures still look kind of the same, you know? It dynamically adjusts the textures close to you and stuff like that. And that's why it's not called the texture quality setting, it is called the texture pool size. Now, as I told you, I would not play with path tracing enabled with a 5080 or anything below the 4090 because it's just never going to be a very smooth and great experience. The baseline FPS, even with the performance DLSS, as we saw, we're still below 60 most of the time. So input lag with frame generation, for example, wouldn't really be great either. Yeah, that's why I'm going to disable this, guys, set it to off completely, and now we get way higher performance and we can actually utilize like DLAA over here, so native res. And look at that, 90 FPS. The problem is, this game has some horrible pop-in if you don't use path tracing. Look at those vegetations there. Yep, really bad. But there's a quick fix for it. And that is the RLOD Scale 5 console command. You need to do this every single time you launch the game. It will lower the performance slightly as well, but no more pop-in. So it looks really good, even without path tracing. And it's going to be a buttery smooth experience anyways. Instead of like 90 FPS, you're getting 80s, but yeah, it definitely worth playing this game like this, in my opinion, instead of just go balls to the walls and enable everything and path tracing and so on. It's just going to be a lot smoother of an experience like this, and this is what I recommend with the 5080 here. Still looks really good, right? Look at that beautiful frame time in Stutter Night, my friends. It's always amazing. UE5. So we're playing this one at 4K DirectX 12 using the epic settings, 100% resolution scale, pretty much maxed out with ray tracing and everything. It's really demanding like this. The only GPU that can get 60 plus all of the time, nice FPS by the way, here in this game using these settings is the 5090. Even the 4090 drops into the 50s often whenever you play at native 4K with hardware ray tracing, lumen. It's too intensive, guys. So that's why I'm going to enable DLSS performance right away here. And now we're getting up into the 80s. Looks really nice still. This game works pretty well with DLSS, probably because of its simplistic art style. And here we have it. Let's start counting our FPS. And okay, 90s, 80s is way more stable than where we started, although it still has those little spikes. I hate them spikes, guys. Also, power utilization is so low for some reason. That's weird. That's really weird. I've never seen it drop down from 200 watts while gaming. What is this? What is going on? But hey, in terms of FPS, I think it lines up with what we had previously with the 4090 as well as the 5090 in this one with performance DLSS. I'm gonna stop it there though, and let's just get out because I don't think you should play with ray tracing in this one either. I mean, you can, but my preferred way to play Fortnite is without Nanite enabled, which also disables Lumen, which is software ray tracing, and also disables the hardware ray tracing right here. So I'm gonna set these settings here and restart the game. And as you can see, instead of getting those lower FPS, even with DLSS performance, the game still manages to look really pretty. Even the lighting looks great without the ray tracing enabled, and it is way smoother of an experience. Not only in terms of averages, which will be much higher of course, but also the 1% lows. This game tends to stutter less when you have Lumen disabled. There's one of them. Come on, come on! Oh, no, that's actually a real player. I don't like this. I don't like this one bit. Wait a second, can I get out of here, please? There it is. Good stuff. Thank you. Goodbye, sir. And now if you want even higher FPS, you could use DLSS performance again, which will still look great, and look at the FPS now, 200 plus. So this is proper high refresh rate right now. Obviously, if you are competitive in this game, you will likely play on low instead of epic here. But in terms of FPS, it's already a competitive experience in my opinion. And this isn't using AI generated frames. Once again, this game doesn't support frame generation. These are real FPS right here, and it does get 220 FPS average. Now it's Alan Wake 2 at 4K DLEA using no frame gen. This actually supports DLSS 4 and multi-frame generation here, which is nice. And I am using the maximum settings aside from ray tracing. And here we can see that this brings the 5080 to its knees, guys. It's around 40 to 45 frames per second. It will be a little bit better when you go to the city area, by the way, because it's less intensive there than it is here in the woods. But, you know, I like to test things in the most intensive areas, and this is what you get here. At least it doesn't really fluctuate too much, which is always great, of course. But if I'm spending $1,000 on a GPU, I want 60 FPS. I want 100 FPS, you know? So we're just gonna go ahead and utilize DLSS quality for that. And since this is the new transformer model, it looks even better than the previous iteration of DLSS in this game, and it puts us above 60 frames per second. As you can see, quite good performance at the moment with really, really good graphics at the same time. Now, I still would probably go for performance DLSS because it brings your FPS up into the 80s, as you can see, and 70s. It gets slightly softer, but again, it's DLSS 4. It looks really good still, especially on a 4K screen. Like, I basically have no complaints whatsoever with the graphics at the moment, even though this is being rendered at 1080p and upscaled to 4K resolution. It's great that it's also coming to the 40 series, by the way. It's really awesome tech, all right? But here with the 5080, of course, we do have a little bit of a trick up our sleeve. DLSS frame generation 4 times, and with that enabled, we now can get 230s. Input lag, it's pretty much similar. It's 5 more milliseconds or 3 to 5 more milliseconds than previously. It's not really noticeable whatsoever. It's actually a really nice experience in Alan Wake 2. If it wasn't for this 4 times frame generation, we would obviously not be able to run high refresh rate 4K monitors here in this particular title. So it's nice to see 200s there, but this is all without the ray tracing. If you disable frame gen and we enable, for example, the ray tracing down here, I'll set it to ultra, so this is path tracing actually. This is extremely demanding. So we're using performance DLSS at 4K and getting around the same FPS as 4K native resolution previously without ray tracing. That's huge, okay? So, of course, enabling frame generation over this won't really be that great because the input lag with 40 FPS baseline will definitely be noticeable. I'll still do it anyways. Let's try 4 times over here. It bumps things up to 140. It might look really impressive, actually, but now you can definitely start feeling the input lag and it gets noticeable, all right? So yeah, not an amazing experience, although it does work like this.
What's the first?
And before we go to the conclusion, I'll show you more games there. We got The Last of Us Part 1 at 4K resolution. It says 1440p there because I'm using the DLSS on quality, and I am also utilizing the Ultra settings preset. Now, unfortunately, you do need to utilize DLSS quality if you want to see 60 plus 100% of the time. I tried it at 4K native, it dropped into the 50s. Anyway, look at how flat that frame time graph is, my friends. Oh yes, this is not a case of UE5. You can instantly tell, right? I think Bob works on Unreal Engine, actually. Anyway, moving on. We're getting 98 frames per second right here. Unfortunately, this is not DLSS 4 in this game. I hope it comes to it, but the current implementation has a few issues here and there. You can see some shimmery edges and some noise here on the water, but even at native resolution, the noise is there, so it's not introduced by DLSS. It's just amplified a little bit, unfortunately. unfortunately. And now the second part of the benchmark run is going on. Let's go ahead and see the FPS dropping. Okay, so over here it starts dropping into the 70s, as you can see. Really intensive stuff, but here is where it drops the most. Previously it dropped to 51 FPS at native resolution, and here with DLSS quality it drops to like 64, I guess, minimum. I want to go outside because then it's going to become really demanding. This is it. Outside. Looking at the stairs usually drops things by a lot, and it's getting like 69. Absolutely nice, guys. Very perfect. It couldn't be better than getting 69 over here, right? And it is conclusion time, my friends. I'll still have a few more games running right here as usual, and let's go over some things about the 5080. So as I said in the intro, the 5080 is underwhelming at $1,000. The gen-on-gen upgrade is really minimal, guys, and it feels like Nvidia is leaving some room for a possible 5080 Ti in the future with like 4090 performance or so, more VRAM perhaps. I don't know, this is just speculating, of course. Still, even with those minimal improvements, the 5080 is a fast GPU and it provides a great gaming experience at 4K as long as you're okay with a few compromises here and there using DLSS sometimes. Speaking of, the new transformer model in DLSS 4 is so good of an improvement. Oh my, it almost fell. It's so good of an improvement visually speaking that 4K performance DLSS is actually looking great even on a 42-inch monitor that I utilize. So if you want even more performance, I think you're not missing out on much if you go that route. Now, I also want to talk about the power usage of the 5080. And I'm happy to say that what we saw with the RTX 40 series is happening again with this GPU. Basically, it doesn't consume as much as the rated TDP most of the time, and it can spike to the 360 watt mark, of course, but in most games it stays between 200 and 300 watts, so it's not like the 4090, which is an absolute energy consuming beast that sucks close to its TDP in a lot of games. That is good to know. Obviously, I can still feel the difference when playing on this versus playing on the RTX 4090, so if you were one of those people who were hoping that this GPU got that performance down to $1,000, well, that didn't really happen, and I really wish it would. You know, I was expecting it as well before all of the leaks and stuff. The upgrade was so small over the 4080 that it makes me mad and a little bit sad as well. They should have done better. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.